Bases dropped on a new edition of Soccer Down here. It's February 11th. It is a Tuesday. It is a match day in preseason for Atlanta United. The Five Stripes will be live from Guadalajara tonight. The Estadio Jalisco celebrating its 60th anniversary, and Atlanta United is the chosen opponent for Leones Negros, second division Mexican squad. That'll be available atlutd.com/live. I'll be on the call with Mike Conti at 9 o'clock Eastern Time. So set your watch, maybe take a nap, get ready, and we'll be talking to you at 9 o'clock. But before that, we got a couple hours of SDH for you, and we've got guests coming this morning. Felipe Cardenas of The Athletic and Jessica Charman of Soccer Down Here will be on the show later today. John, how are you this morning?
Ready for the delivery of the question of the day from Daniel Price, which is right there with both of us.
Straight in. All right, let's do it.
Well, and Daniel has a poll question up.
Everybody wants to create a poll these days. I like it.
Yes. How long can Jason go without having to drink an energy drink? Hashtag Tuesday Thoughts. 24 hours, 1 hour, 3 hours, or 30 seconds.
Oh, come on now. I mean, 24 hours for sure. I don't enjoy that, but it can be done. There's just then, instead of the energy drink, there is a strong likelihood of mate or even coffee, which I don't enjoy, but we'll do an iced coffee from time to time. So if you're going to take anything like that away, I'll be dragging, but I can do it. You know, I might be pounding Coca-Colas or Dr. Peppers or whatever just to get some kind of a caffeine rush. But yeah, it can be done. Give me a little bit of credit, Daniel. Come on.
So, yeah, I'm still on this trimming the Mountain Dew, drinking Diet Dr. Pepper thing, and I hate it.
Yeah, I can handle it better than John can.
Yeah, accurate.
That's a definite. That's an easy one. And if you're listening and you're wondering why things might sound a little bit different this morning, John has the SDH special gear to call high school soccer tonight. Hopefully, with the weather conditions, that could be a bit of a up in the air moment for Lambert and McIntosh for live from Peachtree City. John and Jess will be on the call for that at 5:45, weather permitting.
Yes, and looking forward to catching up with everybody down there at McIntosh and see what's going on with one of the best programs and their history. So it's going to be fun. Good to catch up with everybody, and thanks to Bunky Colvin, who has been orchestrating all of this with us, and it'll be good to catch up with everybody later this afternoon.
Yep. Let's get into it tonight. It's the final preseason game, Atlanta and Leones Negros, a second division Mexican club, a club that was founded in 1970, a club that was in the top flight going back 5 years. 2014, 2015 was their last appearance in Liga MX. But a club that is trying to put together a group that can get them back, and they haven't quite gotten over that hump, but they do have some players that you will remember, and that's an important thing in a match like tonight, a one-off, because honestly it kind of replicates the squad that Motagua has, which is veteran laden and guys who are, you know, being put together for a Champions League run. This Leones Negros squad is being put together to get to the top flight, and they brought in a player like Juan Carlos Valenzuela ahead of this season, 35 years old, 23 caps for Mexico. He's been part of Gold Cup winning squads. He's been a part of Club America, of Tijuana. He was a favorite of Miguel Herrera, over 300 Liga MX appearances, and he talked about it when he signed with Leones Negros. It was about the opportunity to end his career on a high and help this team get promoted. It was a project that he hadn't been a part of in his career, to get a team promoted, and it was something he wanted to take on. at this point. He hasn't played a ton. He signed kind of late, but he's a guy that they're counting on it down the stretch as they chase for promotion. Another player that came out of retirement after playing a few preseason matches with them back in the summer, Omar Bravo. 39 years old, but Omar Bravo is the all-time leading scorer for Chivas. Played nearly 400 times for them. Played in the United States on a few occasions. 2011 with Sporting Kansas City, 9 goals in 28 matches. Played in the USL Championship in North Carolina and in Phoenix, and 15 goals and 66 appearances for the Mexican national team, including 2 in the 2006 World Cup. He played against Monterrey and played against Forward Madison in friendlies last summer, and then announced he'd come out of retirement and play for the team in the Apertura. He's got 3 goals in 11 matches so far in 2019-20. These are guys that they can't count on to play 90 minutes every match. These are guys you got to manage their minutes and keep them for big moments. Tonight's an interesting one for the opponent in Leones Negros because it's a big moment. It's not a moment that's going to affect them in league play. It's not any kind of official competition, but it's a big moment, and it's being treated as such in Guadalajara. It's a showcase match for a club that doesn't always get that showcase. So I'm curious to see if we see and how long we might see Bravo and Valenzuela tonight.
Yeah, and the question that I would put to the floor for all of our listeners who will be listening throughout the day, and continue to send us your thoughts if you're not listening live with us here this morning, other than everybody getting out healthy, I want to know what everyone is looking for, whether it's an expectation or just growth, progression, whatever. So go ahead and let us know what you're looking for tonight from Atlanta United as well.
All right, hold that thought.
Holding.
We don't have our usual setup again, but the thunderclap is going off because Paul Tenorio just tweeted, blockbuster MLS trade coming in 3, 2, 1, ...
Okay.
And we are waiting for the blockbuster MLS trade.
All right. So then I will keep an eye on that particular feed, sir.
Yes. I'm very intrigued because I don't remember any kind of conversation about a blockbuster trade in the works, and that's been known to happen. All right, here we go. Nashville SC has acquired Walker Zimmerman for a huge amount of allocation money and a 2020 international spot. Wow.
Hello.
Okay, that was unexpected. Walker Zimmerman, 51 games over the past 2 years for LAFC. He was acquired in a trade with Dallas in 2017. He signed a new deal with LAFC last season, $600,000 in guaranteed compensation last year. That was initially what I thought was he looking for a new contract, and then LAFC didn't necessarily want to commit. But yeah, he signed a new deal last year. So, Sources indicate the Nashville outlay in the trade could surpass the $1 million in targeted allocation money that Minnesota traded to Kansas City for Ike Opara. So he'd be the most expensive center back traded in the league. Baffling. This is a really strange trade for Nashville. I mean, duh. If you get a chance to pull a trade like this off, you're going to go for it every single time. Zimmerman would slot into a backline. It has a ton of center backs right now, but you have Brian Bekeles, a Honduran veteran who might have a year or two on him. You've got Miguel Nazarit, a Colombian young player who might take a little bit of time to kind of hit the ground running here, 22. Dave Romney, solid veteran. Jalilani Baba, solid veteran. Ken Tribbett has played in MLS, solid veteran at the USL Championship level. Jack Mayer is a rookie, first season. He was your draft pick. So Zimmerman will start next to somebody, unless they're going to play a 3-5-2, which is something that Gary Smith has done a lot of, and you could see a situation where it's Zimmerman, Bekeles, and Nazarit, for example, or Romney and Anibaba are going to factor into that as well. So Nashville gets better at a position that they already had depth in, but Zimmerman would be the best center back they have. LAFC, has Eddie Segura, Danilo Silva, and Dejan Jakovic left at center back. Tristan Blackman has played some center back, but right now he's the only right back you have. Now, they are linked in Belgian reports to Andy Nahar, formerly of DC United, currently of Anderlecht, Honduran international, who would come in and be the right back, and that would move Blackman to the middle because right now he'd have to. Because Eddie Segura, excellent. Danilo Silva, handful of starts last year. Dejan Jakovic, a smaller handful of starts last year. So, if
Uh huh.
you look at LAFC's back line, taking Zimmerman out, adding Nahar, moving Blackman to the middle, it's not better. Diego Palacios on the left side is better than Jordan Harvey. He should be anyway. He's a top young talent. And you would expect him to get the starts. Harvey is still there. Mohamed El Munir is there too. You have three left-sided players that are all solid. None of them can really move into the middle. So could any of them move over to the right side and play as an inverted right back? Possibly. But if you're going to bring in Nahar, unless they just see Blackman as a center back and not as a right back, which I'm not 100% convinced, or if they've got another center back coming, which would make more
Yeah.
sense. Because what are you going to do with this allocation money outlay? You don't need anybody in the attack. You're expecting to move Diego Rossi at some point. Now, Adama Diamante's injured, but you've signed Bradley Wright Phillips, so you've got cover up top. You can also move Vela up top and play Vela, Rossi, Rodriguez. I'm really waiting to see how Bob Bradley puts the pieces together this year because he's got overwhelming depth in some positions and he's got nothing in other positions. In the central midfield now, he's got the three that were really good last year in Edward Atuesta, Mark Anthony Kaye, Latif Blessing. He's added Francisco Janela, young Uruguayan. He's added Jose Cifuentes. He's got talent there. He's got more talent than he can play. On the wings, he's got Rossi, he's got Rodriguez, he's got Vela. You can't play all three of them on the wing. You only have two wingers. So, and then in the back, it's just, I don't know. Like now, LAFC feels very incomplete all of a sudden, and they play in a week in CONCACAF Champions League.
Right. I'm. Well, I was going to ask you what this was going to look like for LAFC with Walker Zimmerman not there anymore, and unless they've got somebody in mind, because you see all that allocation money going from Nashville to LAFC, it's like, all right, what's the follow up here? So
Unless they've got somebody like coming in today. I mean that's the thing is sure for the season, yeah, you might be fine, but right now your lineup on Tuesday would, I'm assuming, be Vela going into the number 9 slot up top. It'd be Rossi on Rodriguez on either side of him.
mhm.
It'd be 3 in the midfield, and you'd probably go with the 3 that got you here last year with Atuesta, Kay, and Blessing. And then on the back line, I'm guessing, because I don't know if you're going to have Andy Nahar by then, you're going to have to play somebody at right back because you'd have to, unless Danilo Silva is going to be a bigger piece this year, and then you just play Blackman on the right, Silva and Segura at center back, and Palacios on the left. That'd probably be your safest play right now, and you're not better than you were today before you moved Zimmerman. So I'd assume that there's something coming, but if it's just Andy Nahar, like you're not spending this much to get Andy Nahar from Anderlecht. So what is it? I don't know. I'm blown away. I'm absolutely blown away by this deal because there was no hint of it coming, and I can't exactly see where LAFC is going with it.
And that kind of lends me into Keaton Thomas's Tuesday thought. He says, who do you think will surprise people in a big way while playing in CONCACAF Champions League in the start of MLS?
I mean, in terms of individuals,
I'm missing Keaton didn't say individual or team, so.
well, I mean, teams, I don't think anybody's going to be a surprise. I mean, you kind of know what you're going into with each of these matchups with the MLS teams in CONCACAF. Atlanta going to be favorited over Motagua. They should be able to handle that. New York City will be favored over San Carlos. They should be able to handle that. Seattle will have more of a challenge with Olympia, but they should be okay. Then you get to the two trickier ones, Montreal and LAFC, because of the opponents. Montreal has Saprissa, and the move with Nacho Piatti going back to Argentina, that is officially done now. No shock there, but they've got cover, and that's the thing is for Montreal, you're losing a talisman, a player who's been your guy for years now, but you have Romel Kyoto, you have Lassi Lapalainen who can play in that spot. You've added Balu Tabla who can play on the right side. You're fine with talent. You're okay. So Montreal, it's just how long does it take under Thierry Henry to get going? LAFC now, I mean, you're not just facing anybody, you're facing the top team in Mexico. And you're facing Leon, who's been the top team in regular season play for the last couple of years. Leon is 4-1-0 this season. They've lost once. They've scored 13 goals in 5 matches. They've only conceded 6. They've won 3 in a row. That is a very difficult opponent to see in this match. Now, they go and play Friday night at San Luis in league play, getting ready for the Tuesday match with LAFC. I'll be really curious about a few things here with LAFC. One, the lineup, especially defensively, because now there's a huge hole with Walker Zimmerman in Nashville. And two, the approach. Bob Bradley has not been a man at LAFC that has played in a conservative manner or a defensive manner. So is he going to do that on the road in Mexico? He should. Just looking at the situation, that's what you would do normally. That's the by-the-book answer. He doesn't have a team that's built that way, and especially not now. So, how is that going to play out? That match will be absolutely fascinating next Tuesday night. But individuals who I think could be a surprise, well, this opens up a door for Tristan Blackman, who has been a player who's developed at LAFC under Bradley. He stepped into some big moments last year, both on the right side and at center back at different points, and performed well. And I think that's why Steven Beitashour's not back in Los Angeles as of yet, and they haven't added anybody as of yet on the right side. I think Blackman's development has been impressive, and he's going to have a huge opportunity here to make an even bigger name for himself. I think Diego Palacios is another one on the LAFC side who could be a surprise early on. For Montreal, you've opened up the door now. Is it Romel Kyoto? Is it Lassi Lapalainen? Or are they both going to play and Balu comes off the bench? Lapalainen's the one for me who could be the surprise. He was a player of the week in his first week in the league last year. Quieted down a little bit after that, but he's a talented player, and now he'll have free reign to really run the show in Montreal along with Bojan. New York City, I mean, I don't know if there's any surprises out of the New York City team because it's the team that we saw last year. They really haven't made any massive changes. I would look at, if we're talking about a surprise on the New York City side, I mean, it's probably Tajori Shradi, and I don't know if he's even going to start. He's a player who flies under the radar a little bit because he doesn't always start for New York City, but, man, he is explosive when he's in, and he's capable of spectacular goals, especially from long range. So Tajori Shradi is the one who probably has the most potential there. Seattle. I think a lot of eyes are on Joao Paulo, the new signing, and where's he going to fit and how's it going to work. The one that I'm looking at, because Sounder at Heart ran a big piece about this, the way their team is set up at the moment, it looks like Christian Roldan will move over to the right side. Jordan Morris will play on the left side. How is that going to look? And will Roldan be as effective in a different role than he has been as a 6/8? I don't think he'll be as effective. I think he could potentially make the team better with other pieces moving around, but I don't think he's as effective there. But can he be effective enough? I think there'll also be a lot of eyes on their new center back, Yeimar Gomez Andrade. Want to see how he handles this jump. On the Atlanta side, I mean, based off what we saw in Birmingham, I think there's going to be a lot of people expecting a lot from Mateo Soseto.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people are going to be looking at him, and I don't think it's a guarantee he starts. Uh, Whoever's on the left side has an opportunity to be a big surprise, whether it's Anton Walks, whether it is Edgar Castillo, whether it's Jake Mulroney. I think there's a lot of potential for that player to be a surprise because we don't really know who it's going to be just yet. But I think outside of Atlanta, most eyes will be on Josetu.
Daniel Price was asking about Montreal with Piatti gone. He said, wanted to know where they stood for CONCACAF. Daniel didn't think that they would get far.
Well, they're playing Surprises. I mean, they're the one that is probably not favored coming into this, along with LAFC because of the opponent. So Montreal wasn't a great team last year. They pulled the upset in the Canadian Championship. They won the cup in a bit of a surprise. So yeah, they're not really. They don't have expectations. And anything they do with Saprissa would be a surprise. But the Piatti deal doesn't change that. Nothing's different because Piatti's gone. Honestly, I think they were prepared for it. With bringing Kyoto in, with keeping Lapalainen, and with bringing Palu in, you've got plenty of options on the wing. You've got Boyan back. You've got plenty of cover. You could handle Piatti leaving, and it's unfortunate that Montreal doesn't get anything for him. But this is not the typical situation. This isn't the DC situation where Hamid runs his contract out and leaves, and you got to pay to bring him back. Piatti's a club legend. You're going to let him call his own shots to a degree, and the timing just never really lined up to sell him and let him go. I think probably Montreal hoped that he would end his career there, and he might have until he just had another child. He said it's time to go home, basically, and he gets an opportunity to go back. He had injuries last year. That probably changed his line of thinking a little bit, too. Maybe he doesn't know how much time he has left on the field. He wanted to go back and probably represent San Lorenzo at least one more time. So he gets a chance to go back and play for a club that's beloved to him, and Montreal allowed him to do it. It's the right thing. Everybody is good in this deal. It's not like Montreal's caught without options to replace him. I think they were prepared for it. I think they hoped that they would get some of these young guys from San Lorenzo. I think for Montreal's sake, you probably hope that there's some kind of a handshake or an option on somebody or something, even if it's unofficial, that if there's a talented player coming through San Lorenzo, they might be pointed towards Montreal first. But they're okay without Piatti. It's just they're not okay in general, and I think a lot of that's going to come down to Thierry Henry and what he can bring to the table on the touchline.
Felipe Cardenas scheduled for us at the bottom of the hour, correct?
Yes.
Would you like to hit the Twitters between now and then?
Yes.
Katie Weaver, 2 thoughts. One, she knows that it's from yesterday, but she loves the biscuits and gravy with Amy.
Do you even know what that means? Because you said it like you completely understand it.
No, I'm just reading, and that version of one of my favorite songs. I'm just reading
it. I love when you read something, because I can tell when you have no idea what it is.
Yeah.
Like no clue what's being talked about.
Reading it verbatim. Making sure that I get context correct.
Ay, Dios mío. Well, you need to know what it is so you have the context. And the context is every morning I post a couple news articles for you over at soccerdownhere.net in the Biscuits and Gravy post. Also post a song of the day. And usually it's a birthday or something momentous in music. And yesterday it was the anniversary of Amy Winehouse winning Best New Artist at the Grammys. 2008, I believe.
Wow.
And the big song that she won for at that show was Rehab, and
yes,
it's not my favorite song of hers. I went with Tears Dry on Their Own, which is my favorite one. I found a pretty cool live performance to post up there. So, yeah, that goes up every morning around 8 o'clock at soccerdownhere.net. So, if you want a little early reading material and a song of the day, there you go. Go check it out.
Well, and you did have in our liner notes a couple days ago that it was Gord Downey's birthday. And we didn't get to address that.
Yeah, that was late last week.
Yes. So, as the resident Tragically Hip fan of the show, that was a good pull.
Yes.
Katie's second thought, based on recent friendlies, roster moves, etc., or any changes to your juice boxes on how the East will shape up this season. # Tuesday Thoughts.
No, I'm not taking too much stock in the friendlies just yet. There'll be a few more later for some of the other teams in the East. I mean, New York City, where we're looking at what they do in Toronto, they'll don't really have any change on how I feel about Toronto just yet. And Columbus and New England, it's still early. Nothing's changed yet. The top three for me are still Atlanta, New York City, Toronto. The next group that I feel like are going to push in are Columbus and New England. Beyond that, it's a bit of a crapshoot. DC is in that mix. I'm not as high on DC as a lot of people. I've seen a lot of people having DC as a contender in the East. I want to see how they fit everybody together first. And I think they're going to play at least one player out of position to try to get their best 11 on the field, and I'm not convinced that's going to work. So I'm taking a wait and see attitude on DC as a contender. I think Cincinnati will be better, but how much better is a question. Miami, look, we just don't know. I mean, we're not even completely sure what they're going to be called, let alone who's going to be on the field in this team.
Right.
But we'll see how that goes. If they get Pizarro, and look, the conversation is still going on with Pizarro, and it sounds really strange, and there's talk about contracts and talking to people in contract and under contract, and if the player wants to go, Monterrey will let him go, and there was talk about the transfer fee being, or the reserve clause being different for European teams versus other teams, and there's been talk about having to go to FIFA to be resolved. It's a mess. So no clue how that goes down. So Miami, I don't know what to say about what they're going to be by the end of the season. I mean, Montreal.
But it could be Miami AF.
Well, that's a whole different conversation. Montreal, we'll see. I'm not really convinced by Thierry Henry, and he's going to have to, I think, show a little bit different mindset than he did in France, I think, to get this team to work. And until we see it, kind of going to wait on them a little bit. Chicago, I think it's a project. It's going to take a couple years to be a contender. So I mean, I'm down to the top three, the next two, and then I don't know.
Yeah, I'm pretty much right there with you when it comes to looking at things. I haven't seen anything change a whole lot in my mindset for how I'm thinking things will lay out. I still think it's going to be a boatload of teams chasing 6 and 7, and we'll see how it sorts out.
All right, we're going to take a quick break, get Felipe Cardenas on the line from The Athletic right after this.
Looking for future leaders we can trust and believe in? Look no further than the high school student athletes right here in Georgia. High school sports teach young people how to be effective leaders. It begins by making their grades and being on time for practice. It includes learning to listen, following directions, accepting responsibility, being a good role model. And it's about respect for officials, opponents, the rules, and each other. The result? It transcends sports. It gives us hope for the future. High school sports. There's so much more than just a game. This message presented by the Georgia High School Association and the Georgia Athletic Directors Association.
Today's show is presented by Appolinsky & Associates, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience, supporters of Atlanta United, Faction, and Inter-Atlanta Youth Football Club. If you've been hurt in a wreck, contact Steve today at steve@aa-legal.com or call in 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Welcome back. Soccer Down here, February 11th. It is a match day edition of Soccer Down here. Atlanta United will be in Mexico tonight. Guadalajara to face Leones Negros. You can watch atlutd.com/live. Mike Conti and I will be on the call, and I'm sure this man, Felipe Cardenas, will be watching very intently, huh?
As I always do. I watch intently, and then I tweet intently.
Uh-oh. You're not going to tweet about us, like,
tweeting with
pronouncing things, are
intent.
you?
Look out.
Yes. Hey, I hear. Sorry to be the pseudo producer. I do hear some feedback from someone.
Yeah, I think John is causing problems again.
Gosh, John.
I
Yeah.
know it happens. We just have to smile and nod sometimes. Let's see if he can fix that, and I'll ask you a question to get us started. Did you have any inkling about this Walker Zimmerman trade? Because wow, that's a way to start off the morning.
Nil. I had nil. Zero. I was just caught off guard, just like everybody else. That is what Paul Tenorio does. He keeps his info close to the vest, and then likes to drop what we commonly refer to as bombas, right?
Does he get the full like siren effect, like on Jorge Ramos?
He should.
I agree.
He should.
We need a sounder for Paul Tenorio bombas. I
agree. It was funny. He was on the Cooligans last week, and they called him the Adam Schefter of soccer. And I was like, that is pretty accurate.
Yeah.
Woj is soccer.
Yeah, right. So yeah, I think he deserves a sound effect because he's talented at breaking news, and this is a big one. I heard you guys talking about it. I jumped on. Actually, I was writing another piece that I want to file today, and I saw the tweet, and so I immediately jumped on to listen to what you guys were saying. I thought it was funny to hear you were literally caught off guard, Jason and John as well. So
I would have never guessed that LAFC would have done this now because I don't know what's next for them because something has to be. Like you're not going into the year with what they have right now. Even if Andy Nahar happens, it doesn't feel like they're complete.
I agree with that absolutely, and the timing is a concern considering that Champions League is coming up in 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. They have a tough draw. They are LAFC, so they are expected to perform regardless of who they're playing. They can't be the one and done MLS team because of just the buzz that it surrounds the club and the way that they played last season and some of the stars that they have. But here's my theory, and this is honestly just my personal opinion. This is me acting sort of like a talent evaluator and a scout, and I see Walker Zimmerman as a very good center back, a very good domestic American center back, a national team player. It performed well for LAFC, was one of those guys, was, 51 starts, in the Gold and Black. I think someone that a lot of MLS coaches would take on their team. Now, I think his flaws, and again, all players have them. In his case, while he's really good on the ball, and that's what you want, like for a team, especially a Bob Bradley coach team that likes to keep the ball on the ground, play, that is an important feature for your center back. But I really think moving forward, what they can replace and what he really couldn't offer was just really sound defensive characteristics, speed, toughness, the way that they play where it's defensive, it's up and down. Defensive transition is so important. You've got to be able to stop another team's counter. You need to step into the midfield, tackle. And I don't think that was Walker's game. I just don't think that was Zimmerman's game. I think he's more of a bit of a classic center back that can play out of the back. And I think this team, again, I don't have information. This is my opinion. I think they want to get faster. I think if I were them, I would want to get faster in the back, considering how they play and the style of play that they're going to commit to. So, and again, if they want to compete, like an Atlanta United that wants to continue to compete with the top clubs in Mexico in these international tournaments, the type of talent and caliber of attacker that you're going to come up against, I think you really need defenders that can close people down quickly, that'll win their duels, that will win their challenges and their one-on-one tackles consistently, and then play. And I think Walker Zimmerman just isn't that type of defender. But for Nashville, he's an excellent signing. An expansion side that's building, I think he's an excellent signing for them.
I was going to ask you what you're looking at and go to the flip side. Expectations for Nashville this year would be what now with Walker Zimmerman in-house?
I think it's still hard to tell. Just like Jason, you mentioned before I jumped on with Inter Miami, it's just so difficult to know where they're going, what they're going to be like. I think Atlanta United really, the bar is so high. But again, you have to look at the different types of builds and what Atlanta United wanted to do in a short period of time, and what a Nashville or Inter Miami may want to do in the first 2 or 3 years of existence. With Nashville, they look okay. They have some players that you think, the spine of the club is so often referred to, looks pretty solid. But they have young players. It's not just a bunch of veteran midfielders like, FC Cincinnati, built last season. So it's not midfield FC. They do have some quality throughout the pitch, and something that the manager, I think, can work with. But it's, I don't think they're going to come out and just start dominating MLS. I think they'll have their struggles. They'll have their growing pains. They have their own situations as far as where they're going to play, that those things can affect a team's start, in Major League Soccer. So I think right now, if you had to compare between, Inter Miami and Nashville, like standing like where we are today, you could give Nashville the edge as far as the roster build. But again, totally different approaches. So it's not really, it is really apples to oranges at this point.
Yeah, I look at Nashville as being far more solid right now, but their ceiling is lower. And Miami, it feels like the ceiling, I mean, sky's the limit for Miami, right? But they haven't done anything just yet. And this Rodolfo Pizarro move really sounds like it's going to be a strange one, with the possibility of it going to FIFA about arbitration of some sort. I mean, this thing's bonkers.
Yeah, it's crazy. I was thinking about that this morning when I had my moment of just coffee, no kids, no routine yet. And I was thinking, it's true. Their sporting director, Julio Davino, an ex-El Tri player, very well known in Mexico, and now obviously in the front office, he sounds frustrated. He sounds frustrated because they're losing possibly their most talented player. It is the new reality as well of Liga MX and MLS and how these transfers are going. And you have a club like Inter Miami that they'll go after the player that they want. Again, they're swinging. They're going to miss. They've missed on a couple, but they're going to keep going after the players that they think are going to make them a better franchise, a better club, a better organization, a better brand. And that's what Pizarro, he just represents that. And I think it shows that Inter Miami is willing to do a little bit of those battles, have those battles, those front office battles, and test other clubs, and how are they willing to be the club that's like, hey, this is too good a deal to turn down. I think what people forget, players have to want to make the move. The players have to be, okay, yes, this makes sense for me. I'm going to be well paid, or I'm going to get a bump in salary. Let's do it. But at the same time, the front office is also seeing, this is the money is too high to turn down. It's a great deal for us. The sporting director doesn't want to lose a player. The manager doesn't want to lose a player. And so that's a classic, real like transfer drama, if you will. And I think that's why MLS is really, I think, trending upwards in that sense, because that is what the off season is all about around the world. And Paul Tenori and Stam Sejko, if you haven't heard their first podcast on the athletic allocation disorder, they talk about that, how these changes in the CBA, they'll make the off season more interesting for everybody, because more now there's more money, there's a little bit more freedom. Teams will be more active in the offseason in these transfer windows, and there's more news to break. There's more deals to talk about, and I think that's good for the game. But for right now, it's relatively new, and to see an expansion side like Inter Miami like go in hard and really want to deal with like top Mexican clubs, I think that says a lot about the intent of a club like Miami as well.
What are you looking at from tonight, with other than everybody staying healthy and getting out in one piece, for the Atlanta United Leones Negros? What's on your to-do list for expectations for tonight?
Yeah, I mean, you said it. I think first and foremost, they have to stay healthy, and I'm sure the injury, the scare with George Bello was a concern. I'm sure it was a concern for everyone from the guys on the field, the guys on the bench, all the way up to Darren Eales and Carlos Bocanegra. Like no one wants to see that. I'm sure Frank De Boer was frustrated as well that a player that he's very high on. That I think he's anxious to get on the field. I don't know if George Bello is the confirmed or was the guy that was going to start on the left side in 2020 like he was in 2019. Just because of it's hard to go from a 2019, the type of season that he had where he was off the pitch for so long, to just come in at his age and start. But I don't think they've lost any hope in George Bello. So the injury, the scare, I'm sure has weighed heavily on them, considering the timing. And now everyone knows that they need to be careful. But at the same time, this is the match. This is the match, the friendly that Frank De Boer pointed to last week when he spoke to reporters, saying, we need to know coming out of this match, like what we have for our first round match, Champions League match in Honduras. It's likely that the starting 11 that you see tonight is the one that will, come out onto the field in Honduras and on the 18th. So it's an important one. The fact that they're traveling to Guadalajara. They're there in Guadalajara. They're going through the process of mimicking a Champions League road match means that everybody has to be on point. Everyone from the trainers to the technical staff and the players. This friendly cannot be one where it's like, we're not clicking. We're still working on chemistry. Again, those things happen at all levels, but you really have to you would expect some lessons to be learned from Birmingham, especially just speed of play, being the aggressor, being that team that when the other team is, commits a foul and perhaps is speaking to the referee, are you playing quickly? Are you putting your foot on the ball, your hand on the ball and playing right away? Are you taking advantage of space well? Are you taking risks that, maybe you wouldn't in training or in a match where the stakes are so high? I mean, this is where you need to really test yourself. So again, those are the things that I felt they could work on coming out of Birmingham: speed of play, ball circulation, spreading the field a little bit better. And those are things that Frank De Boer, I think, wanted to see, based on his comments post-match last Saturday.
There hasn't been an official statement ruling anybody out just yet for Motagua, and with tonight being that last dress rehearsal, who are you expecting to see on the left side? Because I think that feels like the position that is the most up in the air. The central midfield, it's more about the combination that you see there, but left side could be one of 4 different guys, really.
It's hard to say, I don't think we know. I think, Frank De Boer he told us he liked what he saw from Anton Walks against Birmingham. Now, obviously, we all know that Anton Walks is not a wing back. It's just that's not his preferred position, but
especially on the left side.
Especially on the left. I mean, you're putting him in a tough spot. You're asking him to do a lot. You're asking him to consistently cut inside and play on his strong foot. But I think what you get from him is, sound defending, intelligence, toughness. He's going to play simple. And if that's what you want in an away match, which I will be looking at this, the match in Honduras a little bit in more detail this week and leading up to the match. But, if you want to come out of that match with a result, and I think they learned their lesson from what happened last season in Costa Rica, where I was even surprised. Everything that we had heard about Frank De Boer and kind of his pragmatism and the way that he wanted to play coming out, again in Costa Rica, Atlanta United was just like full throttle. They just came out, they were all over the place, and they paid for it. And so I think you'll see a little bit safer setup in Honduras, especially the first 25 minutes, 30 minutes, to see, you don't want to get scored on early. It's going to be a wild atmosphere in Honduras if they fill that stadium. And so you don't want to go down early. You don't want to get the crowd just like in the game that early. And so I think you want players that can control tempo. Does that I'm probably not answering your question about the left side, but I think it does. A guy like Antoine Walks remains, in as a possibility. There are so many players you can move. You can move Brooks Lennon to that side if you want to move a player like Franco Escobar higher up the pitch. If you want to play it with a back four, you have players that can play in multiple positions. Right now, as I continue to look at the data and some of the possibilities, like personally, I'm not ready to tell you. I think that left side is good to go. I don't think it is. I think it's going to be one of those last minute decisions.
And then what about some of the other newer faces? We got the chance to see Hosechu and players like that. From the newer faces, what are you looking at for the progression coming into this match as they head toward Champions League?
I think when new players come in, and this was an interesting offseason for Atlanta United because so many core players, key core players are no longer with the team. And so you're not just, it's one thing to have Parkhurst, Gressel, and LGP still on the roster, and then you fill in with some new signings. But it's not the case. Now the new signings are expected to do a little bit more, whether they're depth pieces or not. Like they're going to have to contribute sooner. They're going to have to show that they can contribute tactically in pressure situations right off the bat. And so I think that's what you want to see. You want to see that you're hoping, if you're a fan and if you're Frank de Boer, that the training, the month that they've had to train has been used properly, and that there is a semblance of chemistry, and that that guys are understanding their roles. A player like Mateus Rossetto understanding what the team is doing, how they want to play, and what he can do. I think sometimes with a player like Rossetto, I think what's interesting is that they'll follow directions and follow instructions, but then they also want to add what they do best. And I think that can help a team that may be still kind of concerned about how they're playing and what they want to do. Sometimes if you have a guy that feels like, not that he has nothing to lose, but he's just kind of coming in new. He doesn't have not the pressure, but there's pressure at Atlanta United, but he's not feeling it yet. I think Rossetto looks like a guy that just wants to be out there and play. So players like that, it's important that they get on the field and do what they can. Other signings, again, it's Fernando Mesa. I think he has a lot to do. He has a lot to show that he's the guy, that he is the, if we're talking about replacements, that he is, a legitimate replacement for Gonzalez Perez, a defender that can lock guys down, lock down a striker that can play out of the back, that can, like I mentioned before, that can spread the field, because I think that was something that we did not see, from Atlanta United on Saturday against Birmingham. The center backs were a little too casual, a little safe. And I think when you're playing in pressure situations, especially away from home, and you're going to have teams pressing your central midfielders and your number 6 and your 8, your center backs are going to have to make some decisions. They're going to have to spread the field. They're going to have to find the win backs. They're going to have to play to the second ball. Sometimes you have to do that. And I didn't see that on Saturday. And so I think teams now, everyone's scouting each other. I'm sure, Tommy Sohn, who I spoke with before the match, he had watched every preseason match that Atlanta United played. He knew what Elfsborg had done well. They replicated that. Motagua will do the same thing. They'll notice that if we pressure their central midfielder, if we don't let him turn, we can get them in trouble. And so I think that puts a lot more responsibility on the center backs to do a little bit more on the ball. And so I'm looking at Fernando Mesa as that guy. Can he be that complement to Miles Robinson, who I think what you're getting out of Miles. He's not the one that's going to be on the ball a lot and spreading the field, although I think he can work towards that. So maybe it's his center back partner in Mesa that when he's on the ball, who we know he's good on the ball, he can help alleviate some of the pressure that they're going to be under.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating to see the lineup tonight, how it plays, how the link-ups start to happen. Mesa, I think, is key. I'm with you because, you saw last year Leandro Gonzalez Perez dominate in terms of passes. He was the guy that played out of the back. Does Mesa become that, or does it kind of get spread around? And then in the middle of the park, you always had Darlington Nagbe to get you out of trouble. You have different types of players in there now. How does the possession start to get spread around more with the 2020 group? That's the thing I'm looking at, because I don't know who the ball dominant guys are going to be just yet. I think we're seeing Barco with more touches. I think we're seeing Pitti with more touches, dropping in a little bit deeper, getting on the ball more. But where does it get spread in the build-up phase of play? And that's the part we just really don't know yet.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think it is. For me, it's one of the. It's that could really help define how Frank DeBoer wants his team to play, because again, we assume based on some of what we saw last season that Frank wants to possess. All he wants to do is possess. That's very important to win the possession battles. He himself kind of said that, and so we all jumped on it, and we saw the team doing that. Dominating possession, not necessarily being dangerous or creating chances. They made that switch throughout the season. They got more dangerous. They got more forward thinking. It did spread them out a lot, though. They lost a little bit of that midfield stability. They bring in Jeff Larentowicz. It helps out. But that was more in kind of the transition phase of the game to have that balance. I think when they're on the ball, honestly, with the personnel that they have currently, and you, like you mentioned, without having a guy like Darlington Nagbe, that when he's receiving, when he's facing his own goal and he's receiving and he feels either the opponent's striker or the opponent's defensive midfielder or 8 on his back, Darlington just could turn out of that. He was very good at turning out of that pressure and getting forward. If you have a Larentowicz there, you're not getting that from him. And right now the other players, Remedi, I think could potentially do that, but still that's not his game either. Rossetto and Hyman, who Frank DeBoer mentioned when I asked him on Saturday about the number 6, he mentioned Hyman and Rossetto as players that could potentially be in that role. Now, again, they're not 6s. We know that. I don't think he's expecting Rossetto and Hyman to start cracking people on the ankles and recovering second balls and all that. But
think
it's
back
about
to how LAFC played. And
right.
They didn't truly play with a 6, and it cost them a little bit at times with Atuesta, but is it going to be Rossetto and Hyman together in front of the back 3? It could be. Yeah,
so it's exactly. So to my point, like Atuesta, what type of quote unquote 6 is he? He's a ball playing midfielder, very technical. He sits in front of the back 3, back 4, but he's not he's just not a classic 6. He's more in the mold of. Gosh, I am not comparing him to Fernando Redondo, but Redondo was that type of player.
That's a good call.
He was excellent on the ball, could turn, could go up to a center back, take the ball off a center back, get forward. Very much more technical than he was a tackler. So
the thing that I think people get confused on this at times, and the reason LA could do it, the reason maybe Atlanta can do it, the reason Manchester City and Barcelona teams could do this is they're going to dominate possession. You don't need a hard tackling 6 in the same way if you're going to have 60 to 70% of the ball, because there's not going to be as many of those hard charging, tackling, blood and guts kind of plays, because you're going to control the game. If you don't, you can get exposed.
Correct, and I think the opponent is important. Like if they see, hey, we're gonna, this might be one of those games where we don't have a lot of possession, but we need to win that second ball. We just need to recover and keep the ball. Jeff Larentowicz is going to play. So I rambled a little bit, but to my point is that it's like I think Atlanta United, with the type of personnel that they have, I think the play has to be quicker, and I think that's what they want. I think they want to get through. They want to break lines quicker and get to Barco, Pitti, and Joseph much faster than they would normally, in the kind of the methodical type of possession circuit that you can have when you're dominating possession. I think when I was watching them against Birmingham, I saw that kind of coming to life, but it wasn't exactly there. I'm like, God, if they break lines, if they break through that midfield with one pass, Atlanta is so difficult to stop. They're so hard to stop once PT, Barco, and Joseph are going through. But you've got to break through that first line in the midfield, and that's not necessarily through possession. It can be precise passing, and that's what you get from a Rosetto, a very good. He's a good passing center mid. Heineman, that if he has the time on the ball, I think he can do that. So yeah, I think that's why Frank mentioned Heineman and Rosetto in that sense, because he sees them as possibly guys that can drop back a little bit, get out of pressure, and break a line, and then Atlanta's through.
It's going to be interesting tonight to keep an eye on it. Last question for you, Felipe. Who are you watching the most tonight? Who needs a big performance for Atlanta?
Well, I would, I felt like PT on Saturday had showed his flashes. I think he was really good on that first goal. When he had time on the ball, and his decision making was precise, it was very good. I think I'm looking at PT tonight to see. I think he's one of those players that I think he likes this type of atmosphere. Like he likes to be away from home. I think he likes to be kind of the adversary in an away pitch. You go back to that first match against Monterrey away. I still think it was probably his best performance for Atlanta United. At least the first 75 minutes, he could not be contained. That's why he was fouled like 21 times in that match. But I'm looking at PT. I'd love to see him, take ownership, take on a more of a role of wanting the ball, wanting to be that guy. Maybe he's kind of dropping back and getting on the ball and being dangerous, as a creator. And so I think he has that in him. I think we know that that's part of his game. And so, yeah, I think PT Martinez is that guy that could kind of show out tonight and go into Champions League, first round, on a high.
Well, we'll have plenty to talk about the rest of the week, and we'll catch up with you ahead of Atlanta in CONCACAF next week, heading down to Honduras and Motagua. Thanks, Felipe.
All right, guys, take it easy.
Make sure you're following
Thanks, dude.
Felipe Carr on Twitter. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back after this.
Looking for future leaders we can trust and believe in? Look no further than the high school student athletes right here in Georgia. High school sports teach young people how to be effective leaders. It begins by making their grades and being on time for practice. It includes learning to listen, following directions, accepting responsibility, being a good role model. And it's about respect for officials, opponents, the rules, and each other. The result? It transcends sports. It gives us hope for the future. High school sports. There's so much more than just a game. This message presented by the Georgia High School Association and the Georgia Athletic Directors Association.
Today's show is presented by Appolinsky and Associates, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience, supporters of Atlanta United, Faction, and Inter-Atlanta Youth Football Club. If you've been hurt in a wreck, contact Steve today at steve@aa-legal.com or call in 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
You're listening to Soccer Down Here daily on SDH Networks, a division of OSG Sports. Find us at Soccer Down Here on Facebook and Twitter. The time is now the top of the hour. Peep, y'all.
Welcome back. Soccer Down Here, February 11th edition. Atlanta Leones Negros tonight, 9 o'clock Eastern Time. It's available atlutd.com/live. Mike Conti and I will be on the call with you. I'm looking forward to seeing what the 11 is, how far they go. I think they'll try to get everybody to at least 60 and probably deeper than that. I'm curious to see if it's treated, as close to a regular match as you can, at least for 60 minutes, because it's a week out from the CONCACAF Champions League opener on the road at Motagua, who had a big win over the weekend, 5-0 win for Motagua. They've added a little more firepower up top. Defensively, still looked a little shaky at times. Felipe Cardenas in the last segment mentioned that he would expect Motagua would try to press at times, like we saw Elfsborg, like we saw Birmingham. I think like we could see tonight. It'll be interesting if they do, because watching that match, even in a 5-0 win, Honduras Progreso is not exactly the strongest of opponents in the Honduran league.
No.
They were able to create some havoc when they stepped up and pressed Motagua's center backs. So I would expect that Atlanta will do that to Motagua, and it could be a very disjointed game for the first 20-30 minutes before someone grabs control of it. So hopefully Atlanta gets an opportunity to replicate a little bit of that tonight with Leones Negros, who, I haven't seen them play this season, but how much will they try to get the game stretched out? And I think they'll be up for it. Hopefully it'll be a decent crowd. They've promoted the game pretty well in Guadalajara, and hopefully that'll give them a boost to make this a good test and a good final test ahead of CONCACAF Champions League.
Yeah, and the questions that you had that you talked about, folks were addressing in the timeline for starting 11s, how long they were going to be out there. That's what a lot of folks were wondering heading into the match tonight, as you're getting this closer to Champions League.
Let's get into the timeline.
Under the weather this morning. 100% agree with what you said about how much different it is to follow a team in your city. I've been a Fulham fan since 2000, but my soccer IQ has gone to another level since the arrival of Atlanta United. I have a deeper understanding of the why behind the tactics now.
Yeah, it's just because you're embedded in it. I mean, you can be as hardcore of a Fulham or Chelsea or Tottenham or Manchester United fan, across the ocean, but you're not hearing about that team every day unless you're really putting in the work to go find it. In Atlanta, and this doesn't happen in every MLS city, but in Atlanta, you can't avoid seeing the logo somewhere. You can't avoid seeing it in the newspaper, hearing it on 92.9 The Game, seeing it on the local news at night. Like, it's just, it's everywhere. So, that is that awareness, that just access is such a big thing. And I always think back to the study that was done ahead of the Women's World Cup last year, and it's a different aspect of soccer, but I think the finding is very comparable to soccer as a whole. The finding was that a lot of fans of the women's game, a lot of people who were excited about the World Cup last summer, wanted more access. They felt like they would be a bigger fan if they had more access to information, and that's, podcast, that's written, that's, a site like The Athletic, that's a site like your local newspaper. All of that, because then you have more information to become a fan. And if you're a fan of a team far away, you're not getting that on a regular basis. You're a fan of the team locally, you're getting that on a regular basis if they're doing their job and the local media is doing their job. So it makes you a smarter fan. It makes you a more passionate fan. It just takes the game to another level that you can't replicate if you don't have a team in your city. And that doesn't have to always be a first division team. You see this effect in Statesboro. You see this effect in Greenville, in Birmingham, in Memphis, in Chattanooga. You see this effect where there is a team, a living and breathing team, day in and day out. You see that effect in that city.
Megan Garrison posted a photo from 3 years ago today. She says, I'll have to listen later, but I just can't believe it's been 3 years since our very first game. I live in Nashville, and the fans here can't believe I won't switch my support. Come on now. And it's a photo of her along with 12,000 plus of her closest friends at Finley Stadium from 3 years ago.
Look, there's nothing wrong with people who do change their support. Like, I don't have a problem with it. I know people will get on a high horse and yell about it. Look, things change. I mean, if you've lived in a city that hasn't had a team and you picked a team to support and then your city gets a team, you're a free agent. If you want to be a fan of that team, cool. If you don't, that's fine too. If you end up having dual allegiances, split allegiances. Well, Nashville and Atlanta can kind of do that because they're in separate conferences right now. So it's not as complicated as it is for some others. There's no textbook on how to love a team. Don't let anybody tell you that there is. If you have a connection to a city and you move away and you remain a fan of that team, cool. If you pick the city to support because you didn't have a team in your city and you stick with them, cool. If you move to a new city and you become a fan of that city's team, cool. Like, it's personal. There's nobody can dictate to you how it works. So, for Megan, she's a fan of Atlanta United. She's in Nashville. I'm sure, like, she'll follow Nashville and keep up with it, again, because it's immediate. But, if your passion is a different team, well, it's a different team. That's you. That's all good. And that was what was interesting about that Chattanooga match and that trip, because we saw Atlanta United magnets and bumper stickers and flags before they'd even played an official match yet. Saw them on the way between Atlanta and Chattanooga, and I'm sure you saw them on the way from Nashville down to Chattanooga, and Knoxville down to Chattanooga, and Birmingham up to Chattanooga, and you saw it everywhere because that was a watershed moment, and it was a really important moment in all of this, and a lot of people went from being interested and excited about something to being passionate about it that day because they got to see it firsthand. And it was a big day. It was a huge day. I mean, Chattanooga didn't expect that many people to show up. They had to open the other side of the stadium up because there were 12,000 plus people there. It's wild.
It seems like 3 years ago, but at the same time, it seems like it was yesterday that happened.
No, it seems like 3 years ago. It doesn't seem like yesterday at all. I don't know what world you're living in. There's been a lot of stuff that's happened since then. It feels like a long time ago.
Seems like it just happened with a lot of stuff that's happened in the in-between for me.
You live in a weird, warped place. I don't know what it is.
And
it feels like a long time ago.
This is different from what?
I don't know. You're the one who said it, not me.
I know.
I kind of did say
like
it, but you agreed with it.
No, like I said, there are some days you sit there, man, that was 3 years ago. And there are part of you just sits there and says, man, that blew by. Where you've gone from 12,000 people in Chattanooga to where we are today.
No.
Yeah. Matt Wagner this morning. This could be the second hour question of the day. Who will be the biggest surprise player for Atlanta United this season?
I've said it before, and I'll still stick with it, Mo Adams. I think Mo Adams is going to end up being more important than people think. Because let's go back to that last conversation about the central midfield, and sometimes when you're going to dominate possession against teams, you can be more adventurous, and you could play Setu and Heinemann together. You could play Remedi as one of those two. If you're going to be under pressure and you need a little bit of bite in that midfield, Mo Adams can end up being that guy. And I think late in matches when things get a little tense and you need somebody to come in and crack some skulls and maybe mark a number 10 or control a number 10, deny the ball getting into to an opponent's number 10, Mo Adams could end up being that sub. I think Mo Adams is a very, very important player for this team in 2020.
Ricky Ricardo this morning, and this is something that happened in between shows. Ricky's really happy that we have Goose locked up for the next couple of years. He's still at the top of his game and has been very consistent for this team. Is there another American MLS player whose quality is questioned more than him because he should be appreciated?
There's a lot of American players whose quality is questioned. It's just the nature of American soccer. You always look to things in a different language in a different country and think that, well, they know better than we do, and that their players are better, and players who go play in other countries, well, they're obviously better. And Brad has been, a top goalkeeper for the United States at a time where you had one who was just slightly better in Tim Howard. Tim Howard is, in my opinion, going to go down as the best goalkeeper of all time for the United States men's national team. Brad Friedel will argue that. Casey Keller will argue that. Tony Meola will argue that. But I think Tim Howard, with the combination of what he did at the club level and what he did for the national team, he's that guy. If it was anybody else, I think Brad Gazan has a whole lot more caps by now. But Howard had a long run, and he was a top guy. And Gazan was right behind him. So now you get to a point that, okay, that door has opened, and you have a new young group of goalkeepers coming up. And Zach Steffen's a great goalkeeper. Bill Hamid's a great goalkeeper. You have quite a few great goalkeepers right now that are competing for this time. I think Gazan should be the number one right now. I think he is the best combination of veteran experience for a young backline that you could use in a competitive situation, good distribution, good shot stopper. I will take Brad Gazan over Zach Steffen, over Bill Hamid, over any other goalkeeper in the United States right now. And I know a lot of people don't put him there, and I honestly don't get why that's the case. I think with the way Greg Berhalter wants to play, Brad Gazan would be the best person for that team right now. Now, very, very soon, Zach Steffen could end up locking down that number one shirt. Might happen this summer, might happen next year. I don't know. He's got the ability, he's got the potential to be the next Tim Howard and to be the next guy who locks it down for quite a while. I don't think he quite has yet. And I don't think Brad has been given a fair shake to win that spot, because he is playing at a very, very high level. And locking him down here at the club level in Atlanta for another couple of years, it's a smart move. Because, again, it's a similar type of situation. Having Brad Gazan behind Miles Robinson is a good thing. Having that veteran experience and a very vocal veteran leader in Brad Gazan, it helps Miles Robinson become a better player. It helps Franco Escobar become a better player. Fernando Meza being a veteran coming in helps that. But having that Brad Gazan, who has been here from almost day one, having that just solid person behind you helps make everything else work. So until you see any kind of a slip with him in terms of losing a step or being a little bit slower to react to things, Brad's a top goalkeeper in this league.
Shelly Thompson Milliken this morning for her hashtag Tuesday Thoughts. She says, no deep Tuesday thoughts. Just wanted to send a tweet as I never get the chance to listen live. Excited for tonight and this season. Thanks for all the great soccer talk and education.
Oh, thanks for listening. And you can tweet anytime. It doesn't have to be live. Throw a tweet at us. I think we all kind of know what the basic hashtags are with the show at this point. It's Overreaction Monday or Overreaction day after
Insert
a game.
Day after.
So Overreaction Wednesday tomorrow, and tomorrow's show will be a later show. So for those of you who can't listen live in the morning, tomorrow will be a 6 o'clock show, so you'll be able to listen live, and we'll talk a lot about Atlanta and Leones Negros. Can't be a morning show because I'll be on a plane. So sorry, I can't do the show from the plane. I don't know if the rest of the plane would really care for that. Probably not.
You'd have a live studio audience, though, if you did it from the plane.
Yeah, I'd probably be getting things thrown at me, and then, probably losing Wi-Fi at some point. We got to land, and it's just not the ideal way to do a show. So we're going to do a 6 to 8 show tomorrow night. So go ahead and lock that one down. But if you listen later and you don't listen live and you want to chime in on the next day's hashtag, and we'll get you picked up. So, Tuesday and Thursday thoughts, Wall Pass Wednesday. Fridays are kind of all over the place, so just make something up for Friday and we'll see it. Just tweet at us and let us know what you're thinking, even if you're not listening live.
El Mata Flow has 2 Tuesday thoughts this morning.
Okay.
Sorry, 2 hashtag Tuesday thoughts. 1, Klinsmann stepping down from Hertha makes me more happy he never came to Ecuador.
Oh, man. Jurgen. So,
Dude, you're on the board.
Oh, well, I mean, who cares? Let's get caught up on this real quick, shall we? So, Jurgen Klinsmann stepped down as Hertha Berlin's interim manager after just 10 weeks in charge. He won 3 matches during that time. He was there and got $80 million worth of players in the transfer window. And then walks. So,
But I didn't get enough support.
Well,
Didn't get players transferred in.
No, he didn't say that. No, don't put words in Jurgen Klinsmann's mouth. He didn't say anything about not getting players transferred in. Jurgen Klinsmann says enough dumb things. You don't have to make them up. He said, it's been reported that he said he was unnerved by the lack of support. I have not seen a direct quote from Klinsmann to say he didn't get enough support. That's what headlines have said, and that's what people have said. He said to them, I guess, separate. He's not quoted as that. The problem is when you have the sporting executive, Michael Preetz from Hertha Berlin, say, "We were surprised by the developments this morning, especially after such a trustful cooperation during the intense winter transfer period. There were no signs at all for this." Okay, so the guys on the board, which, I mean, it could be ceremonial. Let's not make that into a bigger thing than it is, but he got players in. He helped identify players. I'm assuming he was part of the process of saying, yeah, I want this guy. They go out and they spend the money, and then he says, well, I'm good. I'm out. I mean, what? He said,
yeah.
We were on a very good path in the relatively short time, and thanks to the support of many people, we are now 6 points away from the relegation places, despite mostly difficult games. I am firmly convinced that Hertha will achieve the goal remaining in the league. So, 6 points, and he thinks they're good, which, sure, whatever. He said, as head coach, however, I also need the trust of the people involved with this task, which has not yet been completed. Unity, cohesion, and focus on the essential are the most important elements, especially in the relegation battle. If they are not guaranteed, I cannot exploit my potential as a trainer, and therefore cannot live up to my responsibility. So, by leaving, you're making any of those things better? So this is the problem for Klinsmann. You can't say, we're on a good path. We did good. I'm good. I'm going to walk away now. Everything's cool. And then say that you need all these things that aren't there. And yeah, so now it's good, but it's not good. Like, it's good, but now you don't have the support that you're looking for. Your unity, cohesion, and focus isn't there. So you're going to walk, which is going to make all of that even worse and put them back at risk of getting relegated. What?
Mm-hmm.
And what is his potential, anyway, by the way? Really, what is Jurgen Klinsmann's potential as a trainer? What has he done as a trainer? Let's be real about this. What has he done as a manager? He took Germany to third place in a World Cup that they hosted. He didn't survive a full season with Bayern Munich. He took the U.S. to the same place that they were in the previous World Cup. He won a Gold Cup in 2013, which the U.S. had done before. He lost on home soil in the semifinals of the Gold Cup, and then lost a third-place game in the Gold Cup. He then lost the CONCACAF Cup to Mexico to go to the Confederations Cup. He lost the first 2 games of qualifying for the 2018 World Cup, which dug a hole they didn't get out of. They should have gotten out of, but they didn't. He dug the hole. They struggled in the semifinal round of qualifying both times, losing games that they should not have lost. And then he goes to Hertha and he wins 3-10. I mean, what has he really done to be getting this type of attention and this type of clout? Nothing. He was a great player. He was a great goal scorer. He is a guy who thinks big. He has big ideas. I think some of his big ideas were then harnessed into what led to Germany winning a World Cup in 2014. But he wasn't the guy to do that. It was Jogi Löw. It wasn't going to be Klinsmann. He can't do that. He's not a good manager. And for all the people who said this after Bruce failed to get them qualified, which is on Bruce, it has nothing to do with Jurgen. Jurgen wasn't going to get them qualified. And then he pops off saying that he would have got them qualified and all this. I mean, come on now. Stop. And he didn't do anything in the U.S. Like, he didn't change anything. That's the part that, for some reason, I think people forget. He really didn't have much of an effect on American soccer, and he was here for quite a while. What did he really do? Nothing that hadn't been done. He won a friendly in Italy. I forgot. The master of the 6th sub Jurgen Klinsmann. Well, he doesn't get that in the Bundesliga, so he had to leave. Sorry, Hertha. Good luck staying up now that, not just the manager left, and it's not just any guy in Germany either. And that's what's so disappointing to see him do it in this way and write this on Facebook and say, well, there's no unity, there's no cohesion, I'm not getting the focus, I'm not getting support, I can't do my job, I can't live up to my responsibility. So you're not just leaving because you're not happy, you're throwing the team under the bus when they're trying to stay up and not get relegated. You're creating more problems on your way out the door for no good reason. You want to leave, you're not happy, that's fine. You just kicked every player that you managed in the backside on your way out the door and made their job more difficult because of doing this. Just shut up and leave if you want to leave. Don't make it harder for the team now to do the job at hand and stay up. 6 points is nothing. It's ridiculous.
Daniel Price wants to know if his professional career as a manager is over.
Should be. Anybody serious shouldn't hire him. He hasn't finished a season at the club level, ever. Ever. He's finished one campaign qualifying for the 2014 World Cup. That's the only campaign that he finished. Not talking about a tournament. I'm talking about something resembling a full season. Because you played 6 games in the semifinal round. I think they had 2 games in a preliminary round as well. We'll give him credit for that. And then 10 games in the Hex. You had to play 18 games to qualify for 2014. He actually finished the campaign and qualified the team. He didn't finish the campaign for 2018. He didn't get even to the end of the season with Hertha Berlin. He didn't finish a season with Bayern. He didn't have to qualify in 2006. He can't finish the job. So anybody serious should not hire him. Somebody will. Somebody will be out there and want the Clinzy smile and the buzz from hiring a guy with a name. But if you're serious about doing anything as a club or as a national team, no, you shouldn't hire him. You can't count on him to finish the job.
Bartimus Prime is all for you going after Klinsmann. He says, "Get him at Longshoe!" Exclamation point. I never understand.
I was so disappointed. Sorry, Bart. I was so disappointed at the end of the 2014 World Cup.
Yeah.
No. Yeah. Let me finish. I was so disappointed because everything was about, it was so brave. It was so great. The team played scared, defensive. None of the buzzwords that were used when Klinsmann was hired. There was nothing proactive about the way the United States played under Jurgen Klinsmann. Except when it was the 6th sub in a friendly. Then they were very proactive. But nothing proactive. You go back and look at the numbers. And no, stats don't tell the story in soccer. We all know this. But they can help color the picture, right? And when you look at the 2014 U.S. men's national team World Cup performance versus the 2010 team, the 2002 team, can't even hold a candle to it. You're going back to the 1990 half college team and the 94 team that had very few club professionals on it to see a team that was as defensive, that gave up more shots, that had fewer shots, that had fewer touches in the final third. Any of the things you can measure about actually like scaring an opponent. You didn't do that at all. And that was what was sold. I was so disappointed at the way he managed the World Cup because he got the win in the first game. He had Portugal after a beautiful goal from Jermaine Jones. He had Portugal. Substitutions were horrible. Lost that one, lost the 3 points in it. If you got the 3 points there, if you see that game out and actually make the right substitutions and see it out and survive it, then you go into the Germany game knowing you're in the next round. You can rest players. Didn't do it. Had to play Germany and had to hope that you got other results, and you did. You got what you needed. You didn't look good against Germany. Played off the park. But you got into the next round. But you were gassed. Jermaine Jones had no legs. You had nothing in that Belgium game except Tim Howard standing on his head having the game of his life, which is nothing to hold your hat on, by the way, if you're Jurgen Klinsmann. Your goalkeeper had to have the game of his life for it not to be a blowout. That's what that tournament was. And reading the initial responses after it and seeing people be okay with it, I literally, and I am not exaggerating, I literally sat on a patio at Diesel Filling Station in Virginia Highlands after that game ended. I sat on a patio by myself, pissed off for 2 hours because of how much better it could have been. But he was celebrating. He had already had his contract to move on to the next tournament. He'd already been extended through 2018, which was a horrible decision by Sunil Gulati. They were bad in 2014, but they got to the next round. They were better in 2010, and they weren't great in 2010. 2002, don't even... if people ever try to compare Jurgen Klinsmann's 2014 to Bruce Arena's 2002 team, nah, get out. Klinsmann did nothing for U.S. soccer except make a lot of money and throw a lot of people under the bus and do a lot of things that didn't push the game forward. Just didn't. It was really disappointing because, man, he talked a big, big game. He talked a big, big game on ABC TV, throwing Bob Bradley under the bus at the World Cup in 2010, basically saying he'd do a better job. And Sunil Gulati gave him the opportunity, and he didn't. He didn't do a better job. It was very disappointing. And this just kind of shows a little bit about it. I mean, this is the part that bothers me the most about it, reading those quotes from his Facebook. If he doesn't feel like he's getting the support, that's fine. Leave. If you're not happy, go, because you're going to make things worse. Okay, fine. But keep your mouth shut. Because now you've made it more difficult for the players that believed in you, the club that believed in you, the supporters that believed in you. You've now made everything more difficult by them by kicking up a hornet's nest on the way out the door. There's no excuse for it. There's no excuse for that. That's insulting. I mean, if he's on the board, kick him off the board. There's no way I'd have him on the board after saying what he said. He does nothing to help the places he's at, and usually he gets bitter and says a bunch of things on the way out that it's just... Sorry, it's overhype. He hasn't done anything. 2006, what'd he really do? He took the home team to third place. That's where they should be. Just because they had been bad in the lead up to it and he got the job because they'd went through a bunch of guys. Okay. He didn't have to qualify, and he had a good draw, and he got them to third place. Good. And then somebody came in and did a better job and ended up winning the World Cup a couple of editions later. So, overrated. He does nothing. If you're serious about soccer, you shouldn't hire him. That's just where it's at now. Sorry, Bart. Continue.
Oh, no. I was just...
I
it's
cut
like
off
one other
Bart's
sentence.
tweet, so.
Well, hang on. I mean, it's basically Bart and a lot of other folks were happy with your preaching here. Bart says, I never understand why people think Klinsmann's the right manager for the USMNT. He did nothing special! !
No, he didn't. And when people tried to say, like, oh, they should hire Klinsmann back, or, oh, Klinsy was right. Really? Okay. Ask Hertha Berlin how they feel about Jurgen Klinsmann right now.
Second point from El Mataflow coming in this morning. He says, Palacios has huge potential to be a force in MLS, not to mention Cifuentes, two of the best at the Under-20 World Cup. But the Zimmerman deal really has me #shook.
Yeah, I'm kind of blown away by it. It's a really weird one for LAFC, and I remembered some friction about getting him under a new contract. But then they signed him to a new contract. So, there was talk about European interest in him. And then he signed the new contract, kind of put it off to the side, like, okay, everything's fine. He's going to be their guy in LA. And, when people freaked out about Leandro Gonzalez-Perez being sold, and look, that was unexpected too. That happened a long time ago. That didn't happen a week before the CONCACAF opener. And even that had a corresponding move announced right next to it. Maybe LAFC will have something today. I don't know. There hasn't been any talk about it. And I don't think Andy Nahar is the corresponding move. And I like Andy Nahar. Andy Nahar came through as a teenager at DC and was really one of the first homegrown players to come through and have a big impact. But Andy Nahar and what he brings to the team is not what Walker Zimmerman brings to the team. So Nashville gets very solid. Even better than, I think their ceiling, it went up a little bit with this move. It's like, okay, this is bold. I like it. But LAFC, I just don't think you can count on Danilo Silva or Dejan Jakovic to get the job done against Leon, let alone to be, repeating what you did last year. If there's something coming, that's great, but man, what's going on? Why is it happening like this? And I guess the reason that I'm really concerned about it from the LAFC standpoint is we've seen Bob Bradley be very stubborn at times about, I'm good, I don't need anything, I'm good, I don't need a 6, I'm good. Is he going to be that about this? I don't know. If he is, I just don't think it works out. We'll have to wait and see. We're going to take a quick break. We've got Jessica Charman waiting on deck. We're going to get Jess on the line right now. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
A ranger station.
I'd like to report a bear hug.
Okay.
I put out my campfire and Smokey Bear hugged me.
So you drowned the fire, you stirred it, drowned it again, and felt that it was cold?
Uh-huh.
Yep, he's just letting you know you did good.
Bear hug from Smokey Bear. Status update.
I'm gonna let you go now. There are many ways to start a fire, but one sure way to put it out. Learn how you can do your part at SmokeyBear.com.
Sponsored by the U.S. Forest Service, Ad Council, and your state forester.
As a business owner, you know that every year brings new challenges and opportunities. The success of your business demands expertise and focus. And Country Financial can help you keep that focus by helping ensure you have the right insurance protection in place to meet your goals. Jason Wright can help you create a customized insurance plan that has coverages designed just for your business. Give Jason a call at 678-568-6871 or reach him on Facebook at Jason Wright Agency. Coverages vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
This is what matters. This is beyond X's and O's. This is the difference mutual respect makes. This is what character looks like. This is what defines us in Georgia. This is sportsmanship. School sports. It's not the outcome that matters most, but the way the games are played. This message presented by the Georgia High School Association and the Georgia Athletic Directors Association.
If you've been hurt in a car wreck, contact my friend Steve Apolinsky of Apolinsky and Associates. He's been representing individuals for over 30 years throughout Georgia and Alabama. Email him at steve@aa-legal.com or call him 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
Welcome back. February 11th edition of Soccer Down here. If you have any final Tuesday thoughts, throw them at us on Twitter at Soccer Down here. We've got a special guest. We'll be appearing on every Tuesday edition, almost probably for sure every Tuesday edition in 2020. I will reserve the right for anything chaotic to happen because sometimes it does. Jessica Charman joining us right now. What's up, Jess?
Not much. Enjoying this beautiful English weather of a day.
It's warmed up a little bit at least. It's not 30 degrees, just to completely wreck my sinuses. It's like 60 something, but yay.
You never know in Georgia, that's for
It'll
sure.
be 30 tomorrow, and then it'll be 70 the next day. That's what happens.
Pretty much.
So, let's start on the Atlanta United front. Brad Kazan, new contract. We talked about it a little bit earlier in the show, but what'd you think about extending him through 2023?
I mean, everyone that follows me on the Twitter knows that I have a love-hate relationship with Brad Guzan.
Let's
Now,
okay, let's get into what it is, because it's the distribution, right? That's where you get hung up.
I think it's a distribution alongside the fact that he makes some incredible saves that you never expect him to make. And then sometimes simple things like his footwork can let him down with the smaller saves, if that makes sense.
Okay.
He's an aging goalkeeper. He definitely came on in the second half of last season. So I laid off him a lot towards the end of last season. But my main qualms would be the distribution. But I think part of that comes from potentially him growing up in a different generation of goalkeeping.
Absolutely.
So with Brad and his age, which we'll get into when it comes to the contract extension, goalkeepers weren't always expected as much of their feet. It's become a part of the modern game where the goalkeepers getting 80% of their touches with their feet. But in the past, it was more that the goalkeeper is expected to be called on in those big moments. And that's what we're used to seeing of Brad, those big reaction saves, those long distance tips over the crossbar. He's got that down to a T. But when it comes to that distribution, the little dinked chip to the sideline, when it comes to the confidence with the ball at his feet, it's not always there. It's come a long way. But for me, the breakdown happens too often from the distribution. And when you've got a coach that wants you to be playing out the back a lot, you need a goalkeeper that is confident with the ball at his feet. And like I say, he improved towards the end of the season, but it's still very frustrating to me because at times it seems very forced. And let's be honest, that could come from the coach saying, hey, you always need to chip it into these channels. But at the same time, as a player on the pitch, you have to have your own autonomous decisions. And if it's not there, if you're worried about not having the technique to do it, sometimes you have to just go long, or sometimes you have to play it short to your fullback, not always trying to find those wing backs on the line.
So which keeper doesn't drive you crazy these days?
Oh, well, and that's what honestly, this weekend with Birmingham was a wake-up call, because when you look at the other two goalkeepers that got minutes, Brad Guzan doesn't have any competition. I felt bad for Moore. I think Moore was the goalkeeper. I'm certain Moore was the goalkeeper when we commentated the Atlanta United 2 game, John, and he had a couple of mistakes with his feet, and he showed that again in the second half at Birmingham. So I don't see Moore being a real challenge. And when it comes to Khan, look, everyone loves Khan. He's a homegrown player to an extent in terms of coming from Decatur. He was the first goalkeeper we ever experienced. He works hard. But when you're not getting match minutes, you're never going to really be sharp. So it's a really tough one. And I think that's why Brad Guzan almost potentially gets a bit comfortable, because I don't think there's the competition behind him to really push him and challenge him to really focus on those little improvements later on in his career.
I think the guys that are going to push are not there yet. You know, we've seen Puckerin go over to Aberdeen from the academy for a few weeks. He's been on the bench a few times for Atlanta United too. Vicente Reyes, who's got some experience with Chile's youth national teams. He's still very young.
He's like 16, right?
Yeah, he's still very young, but he's by most accounts a different kind of goalkeeper. He's more of that modern, technical goalkeeper that is starting to pop up more. And then there's Justin Garces, who's at UCLA and came through the academy and was very good in the academy, but is at UCLA right now. He is a guy who can come back in the summer and get some training in. You can keep an eye on him, but he's not somebody that you have to bring in under contract right now. Having an Alec Can, who's a solid number two, and you need that solid number two, I think, in a club to have just the security of if something happens. You're good for another year or two, but yeah, I think you're going to be looking at what does Puckerin turn into. Does Reyes become one of those prodigy kind of players and gets a shake faster like David Ochoa at Real Salt Lake? Or does Justin Garces turn pro? Or does he go ahead and see out the 4 years at UCLA? With this move for Brad, I feel like you don't have to rush any of those other young guys coming up just yet.
No, definitely. And I feel bad for Khan, though. I think he's in that position, and I tweeted about it over the weekend. Khan is in this loophole position where he's not getting minutes with the twos very rarely because he's the one on the bench for the firsts, but he's not getting time for the first because Guzan's going to be starting. And if you don't get those minutes, I experienced it my freshman year of college where I didn't get to play very much at all. You are going to be off that quick touch. You are going to be off that reaction save because no matter how much you train, no matter how many 5-a-sides you do on the training field, it doesn't equate to an 11-a-side 90-minute game. And that's why I was very glad to see Guzan get rested against Birmingham and to give the two goalkeepers that opportunity to play. Did they set my world on fire? No. But again, you have to give them the benefit of the doubt when you look back and you calculate how many match minutes that they've had in the past few years.
So then what are you looking for tonight in the game against Leones Negros? I mean, we asked Felipe this in hour number one. We've asked folks on the timeline this morning. Other than everybody getting out in one piece, what are you looking at? What are you looking at tonight? What's on your whiteboard for on the fridge?
I think you're right. 100%. They're getting out alive. We've seen some injuries. We are short in certain positions. The Bello injury, I'm glad to hear it wasn't as severe as it looked at the time, but those ones with head injuries as well, you never know how long those are going to take. So we need to keep our squad fit. I'm sure there'll still be some rotation, but it's about getting those players that maybe started the first half of Birmingham, only got 45 minutes under their belt, a bit longer of a game time. You've got a week turnaround to rest their professional soccer players, so you expect them to be able to handle that. I want to see some more defensive security. I think we looked okay at the back, but particularly in the second half, it was kind of shaky, and more connectivity up top. I think there's some big gaps between the midfield and the forward, and you expect that when you have such a change in personnel, but trying to fill that gap in the midfield and cleaning up those touches, because particularly in the first 45 minutes in Birmingham, I thought there were some phases of play that were one touch away, one first touch, one strike away from being a really good play, but it just broke down because of that lack of sharpness.
What else stood out to you about Birmingham, either positive or negative, with the starters going for the first 45, with a couple guys that I think we expect to see starting at times in this season, especially Mateo Sosetu, and Eric Remedi are two guys that we've seen a lot. What stood out to you, both positive and negative, about Saturday?
I loved Walks. I've always been a fan of Anton Walks. I was really disappointed when he went back to play for Portsmouth. I think he's done well in England, but his heart was always in Atlanta. He spoke about how there was no crowd like the Mercedes-Benz, and we're talking about a guy that's won a trophy at Wembley Stadium, which is the dream for any English professional soccer player. Yet he talked about the Mercedes-Benz, and I love his style of play. I think he looks dangerous. It was interesting where his position was. He wasn't where we had seen him in like a complete wing-back position this time. He was sort of floating around a little bit, but I liked how he played. I thought he looked really dangerous. In terms of, I wouldn't call it disappointment. You expect it with the twos players. It is a big jump to be playing with first-team players. White was a little bit shaky for me. I thought his penalty decision was a rash challenge. But then again, like I say, he's probably trying extremely hard. These players coming up from the twos want to make an impression early on. You can't say it's to do with the opposition because obviously they were playing an equal level opposition that they're used to playing, but that was a big step. I don't want to be hard on him because he got the injury, but Bello still just needed to get some time under his belt, and he's just having a nightmare of an early career right now when it comes to injury-prone playing, and you just pray that he's not going to be one of those players that had so much potential that just couldn't catch a break when it came to getting injuries, if that makes sense.
And what about the activity up top with Joseph P.T. Barco and the freedom that they had and what they were creating in their first 45?
I thought Barco was brilliant, a real live wire, and you saw that Birmingham definitely had a plan. They came out definitely ready to chop Barco down. They saw the threat that he possessed. I think he's growing into a complete player. He's getting more physical. He's staying on his feet that much more. He's having to actually be chopped down now instead of catching a breeze and it knocking him over. So I really enjoyed that. I think it's something to be aware of, though, because Birmingham definitely came with a game plan. And I think a lot of teams in MLS might do that too. When you're threatened by a player, oftentimes that is going to be a smart decision, potentially to chop them up outside the box before they get into the danger zone. But his composure was fantastic. His finishing was good. And I love to see that. I'll be interested to see Joseph grow into the season again. We know that he was suffering with injuries, so that's going to be an interesting one. And again, I love how Pitti plays. I think that it's going to be different for him this season. And I hope that he really finds himself and the crowd get behind him and support him.
Let's switch gears a little bit. The U.S. women dominated in CONCACAF. They qualified for the Olympics again. They ended up winning the tournament without conceding a goal. How much did you get a chance to see it, and did anything stand out to you, or is it just business as usual?
I think when you just look at the scorelines, I didn't get to watch too much of it. It was past my bedtime, honestly, a lot of those games. I think I'm old before my time, Jason. But I've seen some of the highlights, and you see the score lines, and you look to what we talked about early on in the World Cup and how when they in their group stage were dominating completely, and you wonder whether these minutes are as worthwhile as competitive minutes and whether it is a bit too easy sometimes, if that makes sense. But they're business as usual. They're a quality team. We know that. They have great players in there, but come the Olympics, it's going to be a different team. It's still U23 on the women's side, right? For the women's?
No, it's not.
No. Oh, see, that's going to be a game changer then.
But it's only 18 on the roster, and that's where it gets interesting. Is World Cup rosters are 23. You got to cut 5 players just from the group you had last time, let alone a person like Lynn Williams who breaks through and has a great tournament here and has to be under consideration for the Olympics. The next test is actually going to be a fun one, the She Believes Cup this year in March. It should be great this time with Spain, with Japan, and with England coming over for it. That's going to be the best test we'll get to see Vlatko Andonovski and what I think his version of the U.S. women will ultimately be.
Yeah, and I got to watch the She Believes Cup last year, and that was competitive with, I believe it was Brazil and England, US, and I can't remember the additional one that was in it last year. But it's a great tournament. As much as people call it gimmicky, and potentially it is a little bit of a gimmick, it's a great tournament, particularly as they're inviting more and more competitive teams, and that's what the US and what England needs to get ready for the Olympics, because it will be here before you know it. And when you look at England, it's going to be not confusing, but it's a tougher one, because when you mention those 18-player squads, well, England enters as Great Britain and Northern Ireland. So you have to wonder which players you might be looking at from Scotland, that you might be looking at from Wales and Northern Ireland. And I would imagine it's predominantly going to be an English squad with potentially a couple of the Scots that performed in the World Cup. But it does become a really unique team when it comes to the Olympics. And I actually think that may be a hindrance to the Great Britain side, because you are playing with players that necessarily haven't performed with each other on the national stage.
I'm trying to figure out, do we go into the timeline and have Jess answered timeline questions since we got a little time on the clock?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we got you can finish, or can you finish it out with us for 10 more minutes, Jess?
Yeah, of course I can.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
Then let's see what people are saying. We'll get as many of these as we can.
Okay. Jorge B. Thoughts on this year's preseason compared to last year?
More competitive, different kinds of games, which is critical, I think, for getting ready to play a match that counts in Honduras. It's not a bunch of closed-door games. It is games against different kinds of opponents, some physical opponents, and you had the Elfsborg one behind closed doors, but they really brought it and kicked people around a little bit. You get ready for that. You go to Birmingham in front of a crowd. You're going to a different kind of crowd tonight, but you get international travel with it as well. It really replicates what you're going to do next week. So I think they learned a lot from last year and how they felt at Herediano, and I think now you've seen a very different preseason to build the correct way.
Yeah, it's definitely been a learning curve from last year. And I think that the fans have potentially been more involved too, which I always think is a good thing for a team, that when you have these open door games, when you have the live streams, it's so much easier for the fan base to get excited. I've seen so much more interaction from your regular Joe, John, and Josh fans. So that's what I've really enjoyed about the preseason this year as well.
Sean Vergara this morning. Thoughts on Neymar's comments about joining Inter Miami? Although, can we say Inter Miami?
Oh, man.
Was it 2030?
No, don't even put any years on it. Don't even put much seriousness to it. Neymar might be having a party tomorrow and miss a few more games, so I'll wait and see on that one. But
Right.
When it comes to the whole Inter Miami part of it, I think a lot of people have said they're going to have to change their name because of this trademark thing. First, I think it's just one step. I don't think anything is officially done yet, because we'll have appeals and you'll have arguments and it'll go back and forth. But they just have to change what they go by, because Inter Milan doesn't have any say on the full club name for Miami, because it's not the same thing. It's Inter Milan is saying they have claims on the word Inter, and that means when you hear that you think Milan, and nobody else can use that to add clout to their name. So if they have to be Internacional Miami or whatever other thing you come up with, they can do it. They don't have to change their name. They just probably at this
It's
stage.
the colloquial version, right, Jason? They
Yeah.
have to change their nickname to an extent.
Yeah.
They can't be Inter. And I feel
They can't
like,
officially call themselves that. Like, they can't
they
go by the
can't
shortened
do their
version.
social media. Their
Right.
social media isn't going to be Inter, but I don't think it's that big of a deal.
No.
I like the foreign theme as well. I thought, particularly with the demographic down in Miami, I just think it was a good name, and it was about time that we had a team that wasn't just Miami United.
Yeah, it's going to have to be something with, Internacional. I mean, you have, and this is why they're not going to have to change their name. Like, you have a Brazilian club called Internacional. Like, and does it sometimes get shortened by people like us? Sure, because you're going to say Inter instead of Internacional, but they can't call themselves that. So Miami can't call themselves Inter or Inter Miami. They'll have to call themselves either the full name or just, Club Miami or whatever, like something. It's easy to adjust. Not a huge deal.
Chris Hutchison says, since Beckham's involved, why not Miami Spice? I'll let myself out.
Oh, man. That's good, though. I like it.
I like it. I'm a Spice Girls generation girl, so I'm all for Spice Girls puns.
AA Five Stripes this morning comes off of an Elliot McKinley tweet, where Elliot McKinley says, for the 2020 season, San Jose, NYCFC, Toronto lead the way, returning players accounting for 90% of minutes played. Chicago is only returning 51%. So AA Five Stripes says, with the number of player changes this year, when Atlanta United remains top team in MLS, will there be any question that our front office, scouting department, physio staff, etc., is the top of the league? Hashtag Tuesday Thoughts.
I mean, the recruitment, just look at right now LAFC. I mean, let's be real about it, because, man, there was a lot of freaking out about the transfers Atlanta has sent people out. And one, there's been a easy ability to forget who's come in, but leave that to the side. That business has been done for a little while now. And you look at LAFC, who, didn't have a ton of turnover. They're towards the top of this going into today, until they deal Walker Zimmerman a week before the CONCACAF opener. What in the world caused that? And why are you leaving it till now? New York City has brought everybody back. That's good when you can do it. You can't always do that. Atlanta was in a different position. New York City is, going into their 6th year? And Atlanta's going into their 4th. And contracts are not usually going to be 6 years. New York City's already had that turnover. Atlanta had guys who were going into the final year, in the final year, and tough decisions had to be made, because you can't just keep bringing guys back and increasing the amount of money at that stage. And Atlanta's reloaded. So if things go well, I hope they get the credit that they deserve. I don't know if they necessarily will.
I think people don't always look at the hard work that's done in the background with scouting, watching video, traveling all over the world to watch these players in person, talking to agents. A lot of the time we look at the players we've got, and if we're successful, it's going to be great job to those players. But the FO doesn't really need that recognition. I think deep down they're confident in what they're doing. If the team is successful, they don't need a tap on the back. They'll be happy with that. But I do think you're right, Jason. The turnover comes in periods based on if you're signing a lot of contracts now in 3 years' time, we're probably going to go through that phase of shedding players again. And that's something we're going to have to get used to. But if you have faith and you see that the FO is doing a good job with their recruiting, they're able to recruit players based on the stadium, based on the fan base, based on the coaching staff, based on the training ground, you're going to be in a good place to never really drop off as significantly as you see teams do if they're not replacing quality with quality.
Yeah, in a perfect world, you're able to stagger it a little bit more, but it's hard straight out of the gates to do that.
Follow-up from Stejkal. Per sources, LAFC will receive at least $950,000 in general allocation money from Nashville. The amount of GAM could rise to $1.25 million if Zimmerman hits certain benchmarks.
That's a huge deal. I mean, they get a lot to work with, and it's not like they have really spent much this offseason on bringing guys in. So what are they going to do? I don't know. And you don't have, open windows for clubs to sell guys and replace them. So you've either got something already lined up, you've got somebody coming in from South America who they could bring in a replacement still, or you just have decided that you're going to go get Andy Nahar from Anderlecht and then move Tristan Blackman back inside. And I just don't think that makes you better unless it's prepping for a move in the summer, which maybe, but it could cost you going into CONCACAF because unless they had planned on this and they were prepared for it, which there had been no mention of it, I don't think everybody in Los Angeles missed it. They've been preparing for a competitive match with Club Leon with Walker Zimmerman at center back, and now he's not there.
Ellen Reynolds this morning. Just tuned in, so sorry if this has already been covered, but what do you think about the FC Dallas marketing ploy to sell tickets by marketing other teams' big players? It's a bad look in my opinion. Why not make a big signing for your own club and market that?
God, it was dumb. Did you see Josie Altidor's tweet? It was
Parky
Altidore
too.
that made a comment back. It's just shocking, isn't it? I don't understand who made the decision, but I'm pretty sure they're getting some discipline right now.
They deleted the tweet, by the way.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, after 100,000 retweets and plenty of comments. And the damage is done as soon as you send a tweet like that, in my opinion. It's disrespectful to your own players. It's disrespectful to your fans even. And it's not going to work. It's not cultivating local fans that care about your team by attracting people to come watch a game based on superstars from other countries. And I thought the whole Mexican theme was very poorly worded. It was just a very odd decision on my part. And as the tweet said, sign your own big stars if that's how you want to do it. But you're not going to create fans that come back just by selling packets of tickets based on other stars coming to your game.
All they had to do was, I get you have the opportunity to sell tickets. They shouldn't ignore that. I understand that part of it, so I want to give them a little bit of credit. But the way they did it was so poor. All you had to do was have the same idea, but say, come see our young guns, our young up-and-coming stars face the best from Mexico in these 3 games in this pack. But you've got to focus on your players. Guys. Yeah, that's the part. Like, there's nothing about Dallas in their messaging of that. That's crazy.
No,
that's just absolutely crazy.
Let's be honest. When Rooney, when Zlatan were in the league, people obviously knew that might be a reason why people came to the game. But you were always going to focus on the fact that you were getting to see your team play against those players.
That's it. And the people who come just to see those players, give them a reason to come back. If they come in and they buy this pack, give them the opportunity to buy a ticket for another game for half price or buy one, get one free or whatever. Like, do something to get them to get hooked on Dallas. You're going to get some new people in the door. Take advantage of it.
Michael Ruiz says the Hawks do the same thing as far as promoting other stars, but no one raises an eyebrow. Why do you think that is? He doesn't care either way.
They do it differently because it's not just like come see LeBron. And especially now, like maybe in previous years you might have had to do a little more of that, but now you've got Trae Young, and now you can say, come see Trae take on LeBron. And you're not hiding from the fact that people are going to come see LeBron James because it's freaking LeBron James. but you've got to use that to build up your own guys. If it's just come buy a ticket to see the superstar from somewhere else, you're missing the point, and you're going to get a ticket sale that's going to lead to nothing. If you sell it, and when people are in the building, the experience is, thank you for coming, we want you to come back, here's how we're going to get you back. You're going to play good soccer first off, but you're also going to be promoting your own stars. You might get people back. You might create some new fans out of it.
The Colonel has come in this morning. Morning, Colonel. Continuing Jason's analysis of the son of a Stuttgart baker as a coach. The Colonel says he stole a decade from U.S. soccer and was inflicted on us by Sunil Gulati, whom I hold responsible. It's sad that Cordero became president, as he was a part of the whole thing. # Tuesday Thoughts.
Yeah, Jess, I was ranting about Jurgen Klinsmann. It happens sometimes. Bad memories of bad soccer that I watched with the U.S. national team during Klinsmann's era. I don't know how much Cordero was involved in the actual hiring process. That really felt like a Sunil special, because he had chased Klinsmann before, and he got what he wanted, and I don't think the national team actually got what they wanted because nothing changed. It was, I think, worse. 2014 was worse than 2010, and then 2018, yeah, we know what happened there.
Yeah, Klinsmann, we don't want to waste our time talking about him too much, right?
No, I already did that 30 minutes ago. All right, one more before we go.
All right, so let me see
you
if
pick a
there's
good one,
another.
John. Come on.
I'm picking a good one, or at least attempting to. Okay, well, Jeremy York talked about our friends at Brew House, so that was a good plug there.
Yes.
So let's see.
Brewhouse will have the match tonight if you are looking for a place to go watch. You can also watch at home, atlutd.com/live.
There you go.
And the Painkiller is a great drink. Referencing his tweet, the Painkiller is one of my personal favorites at Brewhouse.
It is
good choice, Jeremy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so let's go back to what Kefsey says here.
Okay.
And it is another Klinsmann Gazan crossover. So
a crossover. Okay.
I don't want to say things about walls that are solid overall. This is Kefsey, but Klinsmann didn't make Goose step outside the box in the Georgia Dome.
No, he didn't. But was there anything about the 2015 Gold Cup performance from the team as a whole that was inspiring in any way? No. The game wasn't lost on one bad decision by Gazan either, so no. And then the third place game was an absolute joke, and you didn't even win that when you kind of needed to do that for some little bit of professional pride. So you lose to Jamaica for the first time in history. I think they lost to Guatemala for the first time in history under Klinsmann. Hey, but they beat Italy in a friendly in February with 7 subs. So
6 subs.
That's good. I guess that was the trade-off. Yippee.
See, we got Jason fired up, Jess. It was an entire segment of gold.
I'm loving it.
I would have used the word charlatan and quitter, but that's just me.
That's how Hertha Berlin feels. All right, sell your game tonight, guys.
Jess, you want it?
Well,
cut a promo?
Yeah, absolutely. 5:45 p.m. tonight, John and I will be doing an amazing call of 2 fantastic teams in high school soccer in Georgia. It's going to be Lambert versus McIntosh here in the golf cart city. Half of the girls that are playing on the McIntosh team probably drive golf carts to school, so they'll be resting their legs today.
It's true.
Tune in.
That's a unique sell. I like that. Okay, cool. Absolutely true, by the way. Probably most of the teams on golf carts, and if some of the players don't have their own golf cart, they're probably being carted around by a teammate to rest their legs for the big game tonight.
Yeah, elevate. Just make sure that you elevate and you get enough circulation and get the warm-ups going on. But yeah, 5:45. Jess and I will call this one as part of the Soccer Down here in the SDH Network Game of the Week. And after Tuesday the 11th, Friday the 21st, we'll be at Harrison for Pope and Harrison. That's the next one on the grid. Book 'em, Dano. Aloha.
Yep, so 5:45 tonight on the Soccer Down Here app on soccerdownhere.net. Listen to John and Jess, then grab a bite to eat, then settle in for the stream, 9 o'clock, atlutd.com/live. Atlanta United, Leones Negros. No show in the morning tomorrow. We'll be back at 6 o'clock tomorrow for an Overreaction Wednesday to talk all about the final preseason friendly, to talk about McIntosh and Lambert, to talk about anything else that happens. Maybe there's another Paul Tenorio bomba. Who knows? It's that time of year. So thanks, everybody. until tomorrow, mucha plata, y'all.
Jess.
Mucho plata, yo.
Chicago acquired Wyatt Elmsburg from Minnesota in exchange for Raheem Edwards. Mucha plata, y'all.